Hey there! How's everyone out there in the world? I am officially starting back at school tomorrow. Kids come back and I'm ready to teach my 7th graders. So today is a great day to do an official summer reading wrap up. Now, at the beginning of the summer, I made a TBR video and I only put 6 books in the video because I sometimes do this thing where I make a big TBR and then I get distracted and think, well, I want to read this other book instead. So I didn't want to have too big of an official list to stick to, and ended up reading a lot more than 6 books. I read 50. Yes, 50 books over the summer. Now, some of them are audiobooks. That still counts as reading, in case you're wondering. All right, so as I go through these books that I read this summer, I'm not going to talk tons about every single one, just because who wants to listen to that much talking? Also, I don't have everyone to hold up and show you, simply because, as I mentioned in some of my other videos and just now, I am a teacher. I'm a reading teacher, which means I need to have books in my classroom, and I took them all, well, not all, but a whole bunch of them over to my classroom, and they're labeled and on the shelves ready for the kids. And I didn't want to bring them all back home to do videos. So I'll put a list in the information down below of all these books, the titles and authors. If you hear one that you're interested about and didn't see the cover, if you want to check it out on Amazon or your favorite, book website, whatever, you're free to do so. As I go through this list, if I mention a book maybe too briefly or don't say a whole lot about it and you want to know more, you're welcome to ask questions in the comments below. All right, so to start off, I read a book called The Goddess Test by Amy Carter, and I read it as an ebook, so I don't have the physical book. And it's been such a long time since I read this that I can't remember the whole plot of it, or really even any of the plot. I remember liking it as I read it, so sorry for the very little information on that one. Okay, up next we have Flunked by Jen Calonita. This is the first book in a trilogy, and this is about a girl who gets sent to fairy tale reform school because she's just not cutting it in real life, and so she has to go to reform school where the other bad fairy tale children go to be reformed and hopefully get better. There is a little bit of corruption and stuff going on in the leadership of the school, and so our main character has to deal with that as well as trying to survive and not get in trouble with her parents. Next book, this was on my TBR video, was Mr. Rochester by Sarah Shoemaker. If you're a fan of the Jane Eyre story, I highly recommend reading this one. If you haven't read Jane Eyre, please read it first before you read Mr. Rochester. It's important to read the original story first, okay? And here's why. You will not understand a lot of what's going on in Mr. Rochester if you don't know Jane Eyre. So, again, Mr. Rochester by Sarah Shoemaker, very well done, very interesting to look at things through his point of view and kind of learn about his development as a person and how he came to be the Mr. Rochester that we all know and love. All right. Up next, I was trying to reread or re-listen to a bunch of the Harry Potters this summer, and I didn't get to all of them simply because the way that I read audiobooks is checking them out through our state library, and you can't always get the books you want when you want them, especially books like Harry Potter because they're very popular. So my next 2 books on the list are Harry Potter number 2, which is The Chamber of Secrets, and number 3, my fave, The Prisoner of Azkaban. If you don't know the Harry Potter series, where have you been all this time? But just quickly, number 2 in the Chamber of Secrets is when the heir of Slytherin has reopened the Chamber of Secrets, supposedly, and there is a monster that is attacking Muggleborns or Half-Bloods in the school. In number 3, which is The Prisoner of Azkaban, this is the one where Sirius Black has escaped from Azkaban, and everyone is really worried about Harry because Sirius supposedly killed a whole bunch of Muggles and killed Peter Pettigrew, and he's really dangerous, and so they keep telling Harry, stay away from him. Of course, those of you that know the series know there's more to the story than that. Okay, up next are a couple of books that I checked out from my hometown library. The first one was What Light by Jay Asher, and this is a little bit different. Most people know Jay Asher from his book 13 Reasons Why. Anyway, What Light by J. Asher is a really cute little romantic story, and it's set on a Christmas tree farm at Christmas time, and it's just so sweet and just a cute little love story. Graceling is a book that's been around for ages, and I never have gotten around to read it, and I finally read it this summer, and I'm thinking, what the crap took me so long? Now I need to go read Bitter Blue and the rest of the series. When, I don't know. But yeah, Graceling, I'm not going to say too much about because so many people know that book. If you're not sure, go ahead and check it out on Amazon. You can get a good synopsis there. When We Collided was the next book, and this is by Emery Lord, and this was another relationship-focused kind of book. I would gear this one more toward high school readers, so I'm not going to talk a whole lot about it, simply because I kind of gave my book away. I donated it to our high school library, and it was worth reading. It was a fun relationship story, but that's about it. Beauty and the Beast. This was one that was on my TBR video, and I got a special edition of the Beauty and the Beast that has fun pop-ups and stuff. If you didn't see that video, I'll show you some of the things that are in this book. So you've got the original tale of Beauty and the Beast, and then there's a little window you can see. And this is the part where Belle is being entertained by the different creatures in the theater there in the castle. Different from the Disney. Yeah, read the original story. Okay. The book jumper, excuse me. This one has a darling cover, and I wish I could hold it up for you to see, but it's super fun. It has characters that are made out of book pages, and as the name implies, there is a character that can jump into books, and this character's family is kind of responsible for doing that, and they have the ability to jump into books. And then there's another family that has this ability as well, and there's kind of a rivalry between the two of them. They don't get along very well, and our main character meets a boy from the other family, so there's some conflict there. Next we had Flame in the Mist by Renee, Ahdieh, and this book was really fun. The cover is gorgeous. Another one that's in my classroom, so I can't hold it up and show you right now. And a lot of people think that it's based on Mulan, but it's not. It has similar ideas, though. We have an Asian young woman who's our main character who disguises herself as a boy and fights. But that's where the similarities to Mulan they end, okay? This main character's brother is searching for her because she has been supposedly kidnapped by the Black Guard. Is it the Black Guard or the Black Hand? The Black Hand's Land of Stories, right? No? I'm getting my stories muddled in my head. I apologize. But anyway, she is supposedly kidnapped by this group, and I don't want to say too much to spoil things, but it's Renee Ahdieh. It's good. Go read it. Okay, up next we have Dividing Eden. Now, I do have an individual review for Dividing Eden on my channel if you're more interested. This is another one that has a gorgeous cover. It is, I kind of want to call it dystopian. I'm not sure exactly if it's officially dystopian, though, just because we've got teenagers dealing with corruption in the government and that kind of thing, but we've got a brother and sister that are kind of vying for positions of power, and there's betrayal, and there's family issues going on amongst that, and this brother and sister end up having to compete, actually, for these positions of power, and there's, so many things I want to tell you but can't, but again, there's more information on my separate review. The next two books are a duology, Six of Crows and Crooked Kingdom. Now, I had these two books on the shelves in my classroom library for a while, especially Six of Crows because that came out first. These books, if you just look at them visually, they're beautiful. Six of Crows has black pages like a crow's feathers, and then Crooked Kingdom has red pages. And so that's really fun. They are large books, large in size, okay? But don't let that intimidate you. These books alternate points of view, and so you've got different characters going on, and so you're moving pretty quickly through the plot because you're getting different people's points of view, and they're heist stories, which are so much fun to read. So if you like Ocean's 11 or any kind of heist kind of things where a group is kind of working together in that situation, you would really like this duology. It's by Leigh Bardugo, who wrote the Grisha trilogy, and there are Grisha influences and characters in this book as well. All right, Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. I actually listened to this one on an audiobook. If you don't know about the website Audiobook Sync, it offers free audiobooks during the summer months, and you can go download audiobooks, and they're available for a week. And one of theirs they had was Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. So I downloaded it, and I now can keep that forever if I would like to. So check out Audiobook Sync if you're interested in finding out more about that summertime reading. Anyway, Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, it's one of those books that's been around a long time, so again, I'm not going to spend too much time on it, but it's set in the future, and we have some really funny characters in there. We've got this British guy who's suddenly been thrust into this world of space travel and you know, all this stuff that he didn't know existed. And throughout the book, it talks about this other book, The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, that's kind of like the Bible for anyone that's traveling around in outer space. All right, the next book that I have, excuse me, I do know how to pronounce words, I'm sorry. The next book I have is Suspicion by Alexandra Monir, and this was kind of like, how do I say, I want to say a little bit of Downton Abbey influence, but maybe not. The cover shows a girl in a hedge maze, and what we have is this girl whose parents died, and that happens early on, and she gets sent to America, but she gets called back to England because she's the heiress to this estate, and there's some mystery and magic involved in this hedge maze kind of thing. So I guess where I got Downton Abbey reference was maybe the time period, or maybe I'm remembering wrong. I apologize if I am. Anyway, just a fun little mystery with a little bit of magic in it. Well worth reading. The next book I read was Like a River Glorious by Ray Carson, and that is actually a sequel to Walk on Earth a Stranger, also by Ray Carson. This is historical fiction, and this is a series that's set in the American West and kind of traveling from east to west in the time period of westward expansion. I listened to another one from Audiobook Sync called The Witch's Vacuum Cleaner. This is by Terry Pratchett, and it's just a collection of cute, fun little short stories. And there were some that were so funny. A bunch of the stories are set in this town in Wales where they have like a sheep rodeo, which is hilarious. My family's way into rodeo, and it was just super fun to listen to, like a sheep rodeo story. Another audiobook that I listened to next was called Rebuttal, and it was a super short one. It's only about 100 pages if you buy the book. And Rebuttal is about a couple of kids in a high school debate team, and they're kind of debating their way into a relationship. Next we had a cute little book that's maybe upper elementary, early middle school called Erins Birthday by Ivy, or Abby, however you say that. Just about a little, I think he's a badger, if I remember right, who really wants a lump of salt for his birthday and ends up taking custody of some little fox kits when their mother has some troubles. Okay, next we have two books that kind of go together, Black Hearts and Black Souls by Nicole Casterman. And these are the first two books in a series about Blackbeard the pirate. Anyone who knows me knows I love pirates, and this is a series that kind of fictionalizes Edward's growing up and coming of age and falling in love with this girl named Anne, whom of course he is not supposed to marry because he's engaged to this other girl that he doesn't love, and Anne is a servant in his household. The shame. And, you know, things happen, and there's travel across the ocean and lots of piratey action. It's not just about their relationship. So, really fun if you enjoy pirates. Up next we have Stranger the Fan Fiction. I got this because of the author, Chris Colfer, who was on Glee, and he also writes the Land of Stories series, and I thought, oh, Chris Colfer, the Land of Stories series is great. It's perfectly appropriate for middle grade readers, which is what I teach, so I thought, oh, this is going to be awesome. This one's not. This one is probably going to stay at my house because it is either that or I'm going to take it to the high school. There's a lot of young adult stuff in here. That's not saying it's not a good book. It's a good story, and it's kind of a fun premise. There's this star, he's like a TV star, and all the kids love him, and his name's Cash Carter. And a group of friends who really love this show like kind of casually, jokingly invite him to go on this road trip with them, and he says yes. And so they've got this mega TV star from their favorite show on a road trip with them in the summer, and it's going to be epic. All right. I keep looking at my list. If you're a fan of keeping track of things and like checking things off and stuff, as my little mind is, consider maybe keeping a reading record. I've kept a reading record for a long time just so I can keep track of what I'm reading along with my students and that kind of thing. But it's kind of fun. I just keep track of when I started it, the number of pages, title and author, and then when I finished it. It's kind of fun to look back and see how much you've read in a year, that kind of thing. All right, next book. The Sun is Also a Star. I read this when I was on vacation camping in the woods, and my cousin Michaela was with me, and I liked it so much that I went and put it in front of her and said, take this home and read it. She ended up not liking it as much as I did, but I loved it. As you can see from the shiny gold sticker there, it's soon to be a major motion picture. This is a story about two teenagers, and I have to flip open to remind myself the names, Natasha and Daniel. Natasha, her family is about to be deported to Jamaica, and like the next day from when this book starts. And so she's desperately trying to run around, trying to see what she can do to stop the situation. And she ends up meeting this boy, Daniel, and they immediately click. And of course, when he finds out that she's going to be deported, he's, you know, freaking out and going, no, 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 you can't leave me. And so it's kind of their story of trying to stay together. Next book I read was Three Dark Crowns. If you haven't heard of Three Dark Crowns, it's been all over BookTube and the blogs and everything. And the sequel comes out in a month. Actually, less than a month, because September 19th. I can't wait to read that book, because the ending to Three Dark Crowns was such a cliffhanger. I literally was like, what the crap? And I almost threw the book across the room, but, you know, I couldn't bear to damage it. Anyway, it's about three sisters, triplets. They were born on the island of Fenburn, and every time triplets are born, they are raised knowing that they will have to kill their sisters in order to be queen. And it's unavoidable. And they have these three different magical gifts. And one is an elementalist who can control like fire and storms and all that. And we have a poisoner who can ingest poison and not get sick. And then we have a naturalist who can control plants and animals and all kinds of stuff. So we've got these three sisters. But as we read, we find out two of them are faking their gift, and then only one really has it. And then there's great big twists and cliffhangers at the end of the first book. So I'm really interested to see what happens in the second one. All right. Next one was a reread. A Court of Mist and Fury. Sarah J. Maas, you're wonderful and amazing. How do you write this much? Sarah J. Maas releases 2 books a year. Lately, the alternating has been this series, and then she alternates with the Throne of Glass series. Like every 6 months, she has a new book coming out. How does she do this? I don't know. This is my favorite of the 3 of this series. I think because after I read this one, or as I was reading this one actually, I started to hate Tamlin, and so the first book couldn't be my favorite. And then the third book, it was like fun to wrap up the series and maybe give hints to some other things she's going to write later and that kind of thing. But I just wasn't as satisfied with the third one as I was with the second one. Plus, this is where we fall in love with Rhysand. Okay. Enough about that, because if I start talking too much about Akamath, then I am just going to never stop talking. All right, the next book was another one from my TBR video. This was Longborn by Jo Baker. I heard about this book originally at a teacher convention about books, and they were talking about this book and how fantastic it was. It is the tale of Pride and Prejudice, but the events in the servants' lives at Longborn rather than the Bennet family. I don't know if I can ever read Pride and Prejudice again or watch the videos of that without thinking about some of the events in the story. And I don't want to tell you the biggest one that like totally changed my viewpoint about a character, because I don't want to spoil this book, and I don't know. But if you're not familiar with Pride and Prejudice by Jane Austen, go read it right now. Go stop watching this video and go read it. And then if you're interested in learning more about the servant side of things, read Longbourn by Jo Baker. She does a wonderful job in imagining what the downstairs kind of life would be at Longbourn. Very well done. Oops, I'm sliding out of this dust jacket. All right, up next we had Ollie's Odyssey. Now this is a book that it's probably more of elementary level as far as the reading level goes, but I do have it in my middle school classroom library because it's so much fun. It has beautiful illustrations, and it's about this little stuffed toy named Ollie. Okay, so Ollie is a stuffed toy that belongs to Billy, and Billy almost died when he was born because he had a hole in his heart. And so his mom took this bell that used to be in her favorite toy as a child and sewed it into this stuffed animal that she made. And Ollie, he has bunny ears, but he looks kind of like a teddy bear. So he's kind of a bunny bear cross. Anyway, he's the cutest, sweetest little stuffed animal. And there is another creature who tries to hunt down all the favorite toys of any child that it can find because he's bitter and mean. And so Ollie has to go on this odyssey to not only save himself, but other toys that have been stolen. All right, next up was Queen of Hearts by Colleen Oakes. I do have a longer review along with a review of Heartless, because they both tell the story of Queen of Hearts from the Alice in Wonderland stories. And so if you would like to learn more about Queen of Hearts by Colleen Oakes, I'd suggest checking out that video. Letters to the Lost. I love this book so much. I was like posting on Facebook about it. I was telling people to read it, and yeah. One of my former students came over to my house that week to borrow some Harry Potter books, and I had to tell her about it. Yeah. Letters to the Lost by Bridget Kemmerer. Fantastic book. It was super emotional, and if you cry easy in books, you will cry in this one. The main character's mother has died, and she writes letters to her mother, and she leaves them on her headstone. Well, then we have this boy who works at the cemetery, and he sees one of the letters there, and he picks it up and reads it and writes back, and they start this correspondence. And at first it's angry, and the girl's like, why did you dare touch my mother's letter? But pretty soon they develop this relationship, and as readers we know they already know each other. So how are they going to discover each other? And there's kind of a you've got male feel, because these two people that are writing and corresponding back and forth are going to have to encounter each other at some point. Labyrinth Last is the next book that I read, and this is about Bruja culture and Mexican witch culture. I don't know if you described that well, but Brujas and Brujos, I don't know how else to describe them, but you can see the makeup on the girl's very Day of the Dead, and this is about a girl's coming of age. She doesn't really want to be a Bruja, but it's kind of her destiny, and so what's going to happen to her? And I'm not going to tell you anymore because you need to read it. Strange the Dreamer. I had no idea going into this book what it was about, because the blurbs and the dust jacket and stuff is hard to tell what's going on. But basically the main character's name is Strange. His name is Laszlo Strange, and he is a dreamer. He loves books. He works in a library. His nose gets broken by a falling book, and he's dreamed of going to this hidden city, or the city with no name, for ages, and he finally gets an opportunity to go, and he might be the one that can save this city. Okay? Alright. Making Bombs for Hitler was a cute little book. It's a middle grade level book about a girl who ends up being taken to a work camp. She's not Jewish. It was not a Holocaust like death camp, but a work camp where she makes bombs, and they try to sabotage the bombs. Good for her. Blood Will Tell is a murder mystery by April Henry. April Henry writes fantastic murder mysteries, and Blood Will Tell is a very, I don't want to say procedural, but very much like a crime procedural TV show where you get into looking at clues and tracking down evidence and that kind of thing. A School for Brides by Patrice Kindle. I'm actually going to give this away in my classroom because I just wasn't loving it. It was supposed to be a school for girls that want to get married in England, and you know, they have plot twists and things that are really going on behind the scenes and stuff, but I just didn't love that one so much, so it's going in my free stuff box. Airborne by Kenneth Apple, I listened to, and it was really well done. It's a great audiobook, and It's a steampunk kind of genre, and we've got this main character who loves being in the air. He was born in the air, and he works on an airship, and there's air pirates, and there's this creature that he and this girl discover, and there's all kinds of fun hijinks kind of stuff. I'm trying to go a little bit faster because I feel like I'm talking way too much. Okay, Solo by Kwame Alexander. This guy writes fantastic books in verse, and this one's about a kid whose dad's kind of a washed-up drug addict rock star, and he's just kind of over his dad's hijinks. He's sick of his dad. He's sick of being in the media so much, and he just wants to be, separated. But then a big family secret comes up, and there's going to have to be some major reconciliation between him and his dad, and possibly finding out some more family secrets. All right, next book is Loved by PC Cast and Kristin Cast. This is kind of a takeoff on the House of Night. So it's going to be going into a new series based on the House of Night characters called Otherworld. This is the first one, and we start with at the House of Night with Zoe Redbird. It's her 18th birthday, and Stark has called in the nerd herd from the different areas of the country where they're at, and they're going to celebrate with Zoe. But as always happens in these books, things go wrong, and Neferet, she has some kind of lurking power going on, and there's this other world where there's other Zoe, other Stark, other Neferet. All these characters live in this parallel universe kind of world, and some of them come through to Tulsa. And what is Zoe and the Nerd Herd going to do about it? All right. Umberland by Wendy Spinell is the sequel to Everland, and this is a steampunky kind of Peter Pan retelling. And in this one, we've got the supposed cure for the plague that's been going around England isn't really a cure. It makes people worse. And so we've got Alyssa, Alice, and the Mad Hatter character. They're going to go to this supposed lost maze in Germany and find a poison apple, which is the cure for the virus. The series is not going to end with this, and I can just tell you that right now. But you got to read this one. It's really good, and some super fun characters get introduced. One of Us is Lying is another one that I donated to the high school because I feel like it's a better fit than in my middle school classroom. It's kind of got some Breakfast Clubby overtones to it because you've got a mix of kids that show up in detention one day. And you've got a jock and a criminal, and all these different kinds of kids. But one of the kids doesn't make it out of detention alive. Who killed him? What happened? This kid that died in detention, he was kind of a jerk. He ran a gossip app that would spill horrible secrets about people in the high school. And so there's a lot of people that might not mind if he was gone, which makes this such an involved mystery, and there's all kinds of gossip and drama and backbiting and all kinds of stuff. All These Things I've Done by Gabrielle-Suzanne. This is another book that's been around for a while, and I've wanted to read it, but just never got around to it till this summer. And this is a world where chocolate and caffeine are banned, and our main character, her family's kind of in the mob, and they manufacture chocolate. And so this boy really likes her because she can get chocolate, and she has a brother that's older than her, but he has some disabilities as far as his mentality and ability to function in the outside world. And so she kind of almost watches over him even though she's younger. Her parents are out of the picture, so she and her older brother and her younger sister live with her grandma. And there are some accusations made about many members of the family, and some people get shipped off and some people come back. And interesting, kind of crime drama, kind of almost dystopian because of the government situation. I wasn't even sure where to put it in my classroom library, so I think I ended up sticking it in dystopian simply because that shelf has more space on it. All right, City of Heavenly Fire. I finally read City of Heavenly Fire. Why did I wait so long? 3 years after it came out. What the heck? I got into that series when a student of mine, who was a high school age student who was an aide in my classroom, he kept telling me, read City of Bones, read City read. And finally, I got so sick of him nagging me, I read the first one, and then it was like, oh, I gotta devour these books. And then I kind of slowed down a little bit and didn't read City of Heavenly Fire until a few weeks ago. Whew, that was amazing. Now, I haven't read the other series by Cassandra Clare, like the Clockwork Angel, Princess. I haven't read those, and I know that some of those characters come into City of Heavenly Fire. So I don't know exactly what is going to happen in those books, and if you've read them, please don't spoil them for me, but tell me if you like them or not. It's Cassandra Clare. I'm sure it's going to be fantastic, but how soon should I read those books? I guess is what I'm asking. Should they be at the top of my TBR or not? The next book was another reread, Harry Potter #5, Order of the Phoenix. This is one, just really quickly, if you don't remember, this is where Harry and his friends create Dumbledore's army. We also have Harry finding out about the Order of the Phoenix and that his parents were in it a long time ago, and getting to take part in some of the things that the Order is starting to do, working towards getting rid of Voldemort. And people still don't believe that he's back, and so Harry's still being accused of being crazy, and there's lots of stuff going on. This was another one that I listened to. As I was listening to the very end of the book, I cried and cried. Harry, a couple different points, I just cried and cried because I just couldn't help it. Harry opened the mirror that Sirius had given him and to communicate, and he thought, I can talk to Sirius again, and my heart just broke for Harry. I was like, oh honey, no, you can't. And then when Harry and Luna were talking about hearing voices beyond the veil when they were in the ministry, oh, shoot me in the heart. I just cried. Oh. Enough said. Alright. Next was The End of Oz by Danielle Page. This is the fourth and final book in the Dorothy Must Die series. We thought it was going to end with #3, but then she came back with like, oh wait, I'm coming back. End of Oz, we meet up with Aimee Gum again and her buddies, and they find out, oh no, Dorothy didn't really die when the castle fell down at the end of book 3. She's still alive. Now, if you're just thinking, holy crap, you spoiled that, it's on the book jacket. Okay? I feel like I'm reasonably safe in giving that information. Anyway, Aimee and her friends are traveling to this land shortly out of Oz that the Yellow Brick Road takes them to, and they're going to try to once and for all take Dorothy out. Now, we do get some chapters from Dorothy's point of view in this book, and we do kind of realize that she really thinks that she's doing the right thing, which I didn't want to identify with her because she's so awful in this series. Okay. Next book is Cyclone by Dorian Cronin. Dorian Cronin wrote the picture book Click Clack Clack Click Clack Moo, Cows That Type, which a lot of teachers and a lot of kids know about. And she's written lots of other books, but this is her first kind of middle grade book, and it is super cute. I'm putting it right on my shelf. It's on display in my classroom so that kids can check it out. It is about a girl named Nora who kind of fast talks her cousin Riley into going on the Cyclone with her, which is a famous Coney Island roller coaster. Now, what she doesn't know, and what Riley doesn't even know, is that Riley has a heart condition, and you're not supposed to ride roller coasters when you have heart conditions. So when they get off the ride, Riley's like, oh, let's take a selfie. And as soon as they're done taking their picture, Riley collapses, and she doesn't wake up. And so, of course, they rush her to the hospital, and they find out that she does have this heart condition, and it caused her to have a stroke. And she slipped into a coma for a while. So Nora, as you can imagine, was feeling very guilty for having talked her cousin into going on this ride, but more importantly is why she was able to do that. Her cousin, we find out, has been communicating with someone she's not supposed to be communicating with, who goes by a code name in her phone. And Nora's really concerned because she said, well, I'm going to tell the secret about the person in your phone if you don't go on this ride with me. So then Riley went on the ride, and then she had a stroke. So Nora is so conflicted, and now her cousin's in the hospital and can hardly communicate, and it's a super good book. It's not as depressing as you might think it sounds. how I'm making it, because there's lots of light humor, and there's another kid in the hospital that Nora gets to make friends with, and they have some good conversations. So it's not super dark and depressing. It's just good to think about even the unknown, unintended consequences of some of our actions, how swiftly life can change in big ways. Lots of things to think about. All right, this next book was super fun. The Geek's Guide to Unrequited Love. Sarvina's Tash. I'm not sure if I said her name right, but anyway, this book is really funny. It is kind of set in the Comic-Con world where we have Graham and Roxy. And they have been neighbors for a long time, and Graham has loved her all this time. And when he first met her, when he moved in, she came up to him and said, "Which Hogwarts house have you been sorted into?" And he was like immediately going, "Oh, yes, this is the girl for me." So he's like totally loved her, so afraid to tell her, but New York Comic Con is coming up, and the creator of their favorite comic is going to be there, and he's thinking, yes, this is it. This is finally going to be the day when I get to tell Roxy that I love her. We'll see how it goes. I realize that I've been rambling on for like 37 minutes now, so I need to kind of wrap this up. Okay, a couple more books. The List by Patricia Ford is kind of a dystopian story about a society called ARC, and they are shortening language shorter and shorter and shorter. And we start at the book where List, the language they speak, is about, I want to say 700 words, and then the wordsmith, the one who knows all of the words, even the forbidden ones, like pineapple, why, I don't know, they're told to shorten it to 500 words. Now, the wordsmith's apprentice is our main character, and someone slips her a note that when the wordsmith comes up dead, they slip her a note that says he's really not dead. And there's stuff going on in the society that she quickly learns, and there's corruption and all kinds of stuff like we see with so many of the dystopian books, kind of what the genre is anyway. Okay, The World's Greatest Detective. This is by Carolyn Carson, and it's just a really fun mystery middle grade level book, and it's about a kid who's not a great detective, but he lives with his uncle who is a good detective, and there is a whole bunch of detectives in this town because they're kind of mystery crazy, and there's a competition to see who's the world's greatest detective. And so Toby, our main character, kind of signs his uncle up to go, and then goes like and pretending that his uncle's really hiding in the room, and I'm gonna go take notes for him, and it's fine, he's really here, to see if he can win the prize money and become the world's greatest detective. Alright, 2 more books that I'm going to tell you about. Wicked Like a Wildfire. This one I got in my bookish box this last month, and this is one that I had been seeing in a lot of places, so I was super excited to read. It's about 2 sisters. We have Iris and Melina, and they both have different kinds of magic, and so does their mother, Jasmina. And they're not supposed to fall in love. Their mother has kind of forbidden them from that. And there are lots of reasons why they're not supposed to, which I won't tell you because I don't want to spoil things. But as teenagers tend to do, they rebel. And Iris is more of the wild child, and Melina is more doing what she's supposed to, supposedly. We find out later, maybe there's some stuff that she's kind of not done the right way. But it's really interesting. It's definitely going to be a series, or at least a duology at the minimum, because there's so many unanswered questions, and we're definitely going to get more in this story, or I might have to like put this on my hate list, because if this is a standalone, I will be so mad. I'm sure it's not going to be, though. Okay. Last book I'm going to tell you about is probably not one that many people are going to know. It's called Steamboat, Legendary Bucking Horse. I live in the state of Wyoming, and the University of Wyoming has this famous symbol, you can Google it, of a man riding a bucking horse. And this symbol is based on a famous bucking horse called Steamboat, who lived in Wyoming, born in Wyoming, but traveled the whole country as part of like Wild West shows in the 1800s, early 1900s. Actually, I think early 1900s, because he was born in 1902, I think. Anyway, this is a nonfiction book about that horse and about the different cowboys that tried to ride him. And rodeo was very different back in that day. During that time, you rode the bucking horse until it stopped bucking. You didn't just ride for 8 seconds like in modern rodeo. And the theory behind that was that rodeo was a competition to show off your cowboy and ranching skills. and the purpose of riding a bucking horse is to tame it. So if you could ride it till it stopped bucking, then you are obviously the best cowboy at taming a horse. Alright, so that's my 50 books for the summer of 2017. I realize that I have done a lot of talking about books, so I'm just going to wrap this up right now. And again, if you have any questions or comments, please feel free to comment in the space below. As always, have a lovely day. Happy reading. Adios.